just on this morning. What am I doing back? Well, there's big news that happened since I was on this morning. Big news. Apparently, I think at this point the Jets would have denied it if it wasn't true, or Rodgers would have denied it. So I think we could say it's official, based on there's been no response from either side, which means usually, of course, it's true that the Jets have decided to move on from Aaron Rodgers. They've decided to move on. So what does that mean? Well, that means that Aaron Rodgers is not going to be the Jets quarterback in 2025. It means that it's over. The Aaron Rodgers era, it's ERA, has come to an end. So there's huge reactions, huge reactions as a result, as a response to what's happening. A lot of people are super angry, very angry about this. And then a lot of people are very happy about this. And people are fighting with each other about this. Joe S. says it's the best thing that happened for this franchise. So he's happy about it. And RR Boy says hi. Wild Wave, what's up? RR Boy says hello to you too. So the real thing though is how is the here's and Daniel Diaz says I love it. So a lot of people love it. A lot of So here's the thing. I just watch people go absolutely apeshit, right? Either super angry or people loving it and being super excited and everything, and then of course there's tons of fighting. So Jake Asman's show, which we probably a lot of us have been watching, that just ended. His stream ended, and there was tons of fighting, right? And people going back and forth. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. I think that sometimes there are some things that are not so incredibly one-sided. Like we act as though it's so obvious and it's so the only answer versus there's no other answer. And I'm having trouble with that. Like I don't feel that way right now. I mean, there are things that I've reacted and I've went absolutely apeshit, crazy. So I'm not putting anybody down. I understand that some of you have a very strong opinion about it. I gotta say, and I know this is not the best thing for a YouTube content provider who's supposed to have a very strong opinion, I guess, or it makes it entertaining when we have a really strong opinion. I don't really consider myself a YouTube content provider anymore. I do a show with O'Leary on Talking Jets, which is kind of fun, and that's pretty cool. But I don't know, I'm just do a show with somebody. I just sign in and talk and give my opinions. And as far as this channel, it kind of sucks. I don't do videos anymore. But I come on here and I talk like this. I don't know if that makes me a content provider or just some guy who gets in front of my phone and talks. But that, neither here nor there. The reality is some people would think that I have to have a really strong opinion. And it's not that I don't have a strong opinion. It's just that I have a strong opinion in different ways. Like for example, part of me knows that we'd be better if Aaron Rodgers was on this team in 2025. Like, not just part of me. Like, I really believe that. I know that. Only because the names people are throwing out there simply are not people better than Aaron Rodgers. Like when I hear people say Justin Fields, that's a joke to me. Like, Justin Fields, don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-Justin Fields. I think, he's a really good backup quarterback. He's the kind of guy that could come in and win you some games. I don't think he's any better than Tyrod Taylor. I don't know. He hasn't proven that he is. Because he's so limited. Like, he could run and he could win you games. He's a good backup quarterback, but I kind of want a starting quarterback that can drop back and pass the ball, consistently and have that be a strength also. And that's not to hate on Justin Fields. It's just that I don't see an argument that he's a better option than Aaron Rodgers, even at this point of Aaron Rodgers' career. And then, obviously drafting anybody, young guys, that's not going to be a better option. I mean, I just think, and I'm not going to call people stupid for saying otherwise. I just think that realistically, we're not going to have a better quarterback under center in 25 than Aaron Rodgers. We're not. So in that realm, I'm kind of disappointed from that perspective. From that perspective, I'm disappointed from that perspective because we're not going to be as competitive as we could be. I don't think. And and hold on here because this is why I'm not yelling or screaming. Now I know people are naming other quarterbacks, like I see Matthew Stafford coming up, but understand what we have some cap issues. That's the problem. We don't have the money. Like we literally don't have the money. Like Stafford's going to want a multi-year deal, at least 2 years guaranteed, if not three. And we have to get a quarterback after this. We're not going to make Stafford our quarterback for the next 3 years. And if we did, how are we going to sign everybody? We got a lot of free agents coming up in 20. So like there's a money factor to this, right? We can't just. I mean, look. I mean, yeah, Matthew Stafford. That would be great if they can make it financially work without it. But what I mean, I also care about the future. Like, what are we going to do salary cap wise as far as moving forward and building a team? Like, there is a salary cap. It is real. People don't want to accept it. They want to hear about it. It annoys them, but it's real, and it matters. If you move on from Aaron Rodgers, that's going to be very expensive. That's going to cost us either 46 million if you eat it all now and once, or like 35-25 or some weird shit like that. But it could save give us another 12 to 15 million this year, whatever it is. But it still ends up being that we'd have 45-50 million, and we have a million roster holes that we have to fill. So you could bring in Stafford, but what about the million roster holes? Like, we literally have one wide receiver. One. Who's your second one? Malachi Corley, we know nothing about. Like, who's our wide receivers? So this is my concerns, right? This is my concerns. I don't see how you can get a better quarterback in for next year. I think that 2025, we're kind of going to have to eat this year. Not completely eat this year. There's good things that can come out of it. Culture change could still happen, right? Reestablishing new systems and getting the guys used to playing new systems can still happen. Overachieving can still happen. Tyrod Taylor, whoever it is, could be your quarterback, and we could overachieve and win 7-8 games and shock everyone and have good momentum and then get a real quarterback when we have tons of money, whether it's free agency or the draft, and really have a future again. And like in 2026, we could be looking at a complete future. Like all of a sudden, we won 7-8 games. Some of the young guys showed promise. Now we have $170 million in cap money. We can sign the guys we really like, that Aaron Glenn really likes, that are fitting into the system. We got another draft. We have, like things could happen, and suddenly we're back on the right track again of building. So it's kind of like, this is why I don't have such a strong opinion, because it's like part of me wants to win 9 or 10 games and break this crazy streak and get into the playoffs. And I know that if you're hoping for that, whether it's realistic or not, Aaron Rodgers gives us the best chance to make that happen, the best opportunity. But at the same time, it crushes 26 because because all this money goes there. Right. And I know people are saying, well, he was willing to change his contract. We don't know that yet. Like, if we find out he's willing to change his contract, then we scratch our heads and say, why didn't we just keep him? But we don't know that. He didn't say it. Sources said it. Sources said he would readjust his contract. It never came from his mouth. And you know what we learned about Aaron Rodgers, if anything, in the last 2 years? If it doesn't come out of his mouth on McCaffrey on Tuesday, it's not fucking true. Because nothing that was said about him, or barely anything, or especially things that he said, that he wants to do, turned out to be true at all until he said it on the show. And he's never said it, that he's willing to renegotiate. And even if he said he was willing to renegotiate, he may not have been willing to renegotiate under the terms and the conditions of Aaron Glenn and this staff. Because he may have said, no, I want to run back my offense for the next year. Like, put your system in a year after, but I'm not going to learn a new system. We don't know. He may have said that. We don't know. So we don't have the information. So that's why I'm in the middle on this. I'm kind of bummed that Aaron Rodgers is not our quarterback anymore. But I didn't know if he was willing to renegotiate. Like, if he was willing to somehow change it so we wouldn't have this horrible cap hit in 26, then I definitely would have been on board for another year of Aaron Rodgers. But I don't know that he was willing to do that. You know what I mean? So I kind of like feel like we don't have enough information to be really angry or really happy. I feel like we need all the information before we could truly judge. Like if you just tell me that if you tell me that he was willing to change his contract where it wasn't going to be a horrible hit in 26, then I'm pissed off. Why didn't we just win as many games as we can this year with him? Right? Because we have to start with a new quarterback either way in 26. Why not try to change the culture to a winning culture? I understand the value in that. But if he wasn't willing to budge, and we don't know this, what if during the conversation he said, I'm playing my system? It doesn't make sense for me to learn a new system for 1 year. It won't work for me. I'm going to come out and I'm going to do my thing. The players know it. Garrett knows it. Devontae will come back. He knows it. And the coaching staff is going to say, no way. We're not going to burn a year doing your system and then have to teach everybody our system. Right? And then that's kind of understandable. So we don't know. I need the information. I need to know what was said, what the conversation. How do we know we're not going to get Cam Ward and just win 12 games? How do we know? If you ask Matthew Smith, he says that will happen. Who am I to argue? It's his opinion, but maybe that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know what the conversation was, so I can't be angry or ecstatic. I'm disappointed in the moment for the next season. I have to sit there and react to every game with Green Bean. I have to sit there and watch every single snap. So you can shut it off and walk away. I really can't. Because I'm the kind of guy, when I'm obligated and committed, I'm committed. I have an obligation to Green Bean. He's my friend. I'm going to be there with him every snap till the end. So I have to watch this crap. So yeah, part of me is like terrified that, and disappointed. But the other part of me says, if he wasn't willing to change his salary structure and we were going to take a $63 million hit in 2026, thank God we got rid of him, because he's not worth that. We're not winning a Super Bowl next year. It's not worth $63 million in 26. The year that we have to re-sign or extend or whatever you want to call it, AVT, Sauce Gardner, Jermaine Johnson, Brees Hall, who am I missing? Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, Jermaine Johnson. Who am I? Brees Hall. I'm saying things over again, but there's a ton of guys. And then Simpson is a free agent. The other guard. We want to lose both our guards? Like, where's the money going to come from? We're going to burn $63 million and then have to sign all these guys. And then everyone's going to cry and yell because we didn't bring any free agents. We're spending 170, 100. Oh, it would be if Rodgers came back this year and wasn't willing to change his contract, which we don't know if he was willing to do or not, that would bring us to $137 million. But that $137 million would end up going just to retain our players. If he's gone, we have $173 million. Now we can retain our players, right? And maybe have some money to fill in some holes. And understand, we have this year's draft, very deep draft, lots of guys in the second, third, and fourth round. Lots of guys. We might be able to add some players that way and fill some holes. No question about it, right? And then next year's draft a quarterback, but also fill some holes, right? Plus the signing our guys and maybe having some space for some people. So this could be quick. By 26, we could be very competitive. So it matters. It matters whether or not Aaron Rodgers was willing to change his contract or not. That's important information that I don't have. I don't care how many people say, oh yeah, Jeremy, he was willing. Because the only people that said he was willing were people that were not named Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers speaks for himself. He never said it. Right? And we don't know that based on the conversation that they had with him, we don't know. We didn't hear. We don't know yet what that conversation was. Was it, we don't even want to, like if he came in and they said to him, we don't want you, without even talking about what he was willing to do, then I'm pissed. But I have a very difficult time believing that. Because why would they bring him in and why would they say we're going to look at the roster? Like, I have to imagine that part of their determination had to do with things like contract restructuring and are you going to play in our system and those kind of conversations, right? So I have to assume, but the point is we don't know. So I don't understand the ranting and the screaming and the angry and the yelling when we don't know. We don't know. We could be disappointed because the next season is looking right now. It's looking terrible. But last year at this time, it was looking terrible, and then we got all excited and thought it was going to be great, right? Because we didn't know that Tyron Smith was going to suck. We didn't know that Greg Zuerlein was going to forget how to kick a field goal, and we didn't know that Robert Saleh was going to get fired after Game 5. And they weren't going to have any plan to replace him other than, hey, defensive coordinator, continue being the defensive coordinator and also be a head coach. Do both jobs. And let's hope that works and that improves the team. It's stupid, right? So we didn't know any of that. We don't, so the point is, we don't know right now what the roster is going to look like. There's going to be things that happen that excite us. We're going to draft, and we might trade up or down. We might get Cam Ward, and that's going to excite some people. It's going to piss some people off, maybe. Like, a whole bunch of things are going to happen. I think there are too many holes. I don't think there's anything that can happen between now and May 1st, whatever date you want to give, that's going to make me all of a sudden believe that we have filled all of our holes and have the roster we need. And when you take Aaron Rodgers out of the equation, I certainly don't believe it, right? So, but if he wasn't willing to renegotiate his contract, I understand. I'm not mad because I'm not gonna take a dagger and slice the neck of 2026 with a $63 million cap hit for nothing. Like, we need to move forward. We can't put everything into 1 year and 25 where we're not going to win a Super Bowl anyway, and then hurt and damage our future. So here's the thing. It doesn't, regardless of what he was willing to agree with, I wouldn't give Rodgers a contract if it was $1 million a year. Okay, so there are people who really don't like Rodgers. But here's the thing. Here's my optimism. Okay, this is what I'm optimistic about. With or without Rodgers, next year is probably going to suck. I'm bracing for it. It's going to be another long Jets year. That's my assumption. But there are things that I'm obviously hoping for. I want to see us win more games than we think we're going to win. I want to see the media and the circus go away. Like, no controversy. And hear that we have a good locker room. And not have players rumored to want trades, but be happy and say they really like the locker room and that they see the future and they see the vision. Like, there are things we could still hope to see. But most importantly, if we fill some of the holes this offseason, like whether we draft McMillan or we draft Mason Graham or if we draft the safety or whatever we do, what if we fill that hole? And then let's say in the second round we take Fannin, the tight end, and let's say he has a great rookie year and he gives us promise for the future in tight ends. And let's say in the third or fourth round we get a defensive tackle if it wasn't Mason Graham in the first rounds. And we get one because it's such a deep draft in defensive tackle. Let's say if we do those type of things, or we take a right tackle. Let's say we take Ozzie Trapillo from Boston College, and I'm right, and he pans out. Let's say we fill 3 or 4 of those holes. And then in 26, because we only won 6 or 7 games, let's say we only won 5 games, 6 games, right? But again, it's feeling a little bit better. People aren't at least not miserable. In the end, maybe we play better the last 5 or 6 games of the year, and we're just thinking, okay, we're young again. Things are looking okay. 26 comes, we have tons of money. We sign the guys we want, the core players. Did Sauce have a bounce back year? If he did, we pay him. If he didn't, and he's just okay, we're not giving you your $30 million. So you're gonna have to take your worth. We make all those decisions. We keep the core players that we want to keep, and then we have another draft to fill holes. And then this time we have free agency, and we actually have some money. See, so that's how I see it. We could potentially turn this ship around, and maybe in 26, if we won 6 or 7 games in 25, maybe then we win 8 to 10 games. Maybe we sneak in a wild card spot. but the young guys do good, and we're projecting the right way, the right direction, right? And that's why I was so depressed when we sucked this year, because I knew this wasn't going to be 25. We'll just bounce back. I knew that we had at least 2 years now of this suffering. I think 26 is the year that we're going to hope to sneak into the playoffs. So I like that. Knobcraft says today was a great day. Rodgers and his homies can kick rocks. Grandizer says, Jeremy, that's a lot of ifs. It's time for the Super Bowl. It is a lot of ifs, but that's what football is, Grandizer. I mean, that's why the Miami Dolphins suck, because every year they have tons of ifs that never happen, right? That's why you suffer with Miami, just like we suffer with the Jets. With Miami, it's if Tua could stay healthy, if their defense could finally be as good as they claim it is, which it never is, right? So if the Miami offensive line could play well, which it never does. Like, it's the same thing. Every team in the world, if they're going to win the Super Bowl, if they're going to compete, have a lot of ifs. So yeah, we have a lot of ifs. I mean, that's like every team in football. But the point is, it's not. That's why we have to just wait and see and hope for the best and do the best moves that we can do and see the best things that we can see done. So with me, it's got to be progress, right? That's the thing. It's got to be progress. So what's the progress for next year? I don't know that we're going to win that many more games if we suddenly don't have a quarterback, but we might see the draft picks work out well. We might see some new blood come in and them do well. We might like our coach and think he's a good coach. We might outperform. These are all things we could just hope happen. But I honestly think this team could turn it around in 2 years, because we're not starting where we were in 2020. We have pieces, and we're going to have tons of salary cap after next year in 26. Now that Rodgers is gone, we're definitely going to have salary cap. Like, we know that now for a fact that we're going to have salary cap. So there is a chance. Obviously, there's ifs. I mean, there's 32 teams, and you want to be a competitive top 10 team. Obviously, everything has to go well. You have to draft well. Things have to go well. There's no question about it. But the opportunity is there. The vision or the possibility is there. It's not like we're in this impossible, it can't happen situation. It's not true. We might be able to fill a bunch of spots this year and get rid of so many holes in the roster. There might not be as many next year. And then next year, we'll have lots of money in draft picks, and we might be able to complete the roster. It's never 100%. You're not going to have a star in every position, but we might have a fairly good roster that's very solid. And then it just comes to the same thing as everybody else. Who's the quarterback? Do they pan out? Are we taking one in 26? Are we going to take one in 25? Is it going to be a mid-rounder that pans out, or is it going to be a free agent? However it works out, obviously the quarterback is going to be critical. But the point is like that, there's nothing we can control. There's nothing we could do about it except hope. Hope that we somehow end up with a quarterback. But the rest of it is very doable. Like, it's not like a dream or a pipe dream. Like, it's very fathomable that we can build this roster in 2 full off seasons because we have a core of players. Not to mention a lot of the tough positions. Like, we have some good edge rushers, like a good pass rush specialist. We have Jermaine Johnson. We have a CB1 in Sauce Gardner. We have a WR1 in Garrett Wilson. We have a left tackle in Olu. These are key positions that we have guys. We have a center. We might move him to guard and use another center and draft one. That's fine. But that's an interior guard, or a lineman that we have. Check the box. There are some things we have. We have a young running back room. There are things that we have. We need, we need safeties, right? So we know we need a couple of safeties. We may or may not need a cornerback because Eccles might fill in fine. Stiggers might be the future. We don't know, right? We know we have Quincy Williams at linebacker. So we're definitely going to need a linebacker. Depending on whether Barnes works out or Surratt works out. CJ Mosley is 1 year. So obviously somewhere in the next 2 years is going to have to be more linebacker help. We know this year we're probably going to address defensive tackle. And it's a great draft to do it. That's why I believe we will, because it's such a deep draft in defensive tackle. I'm very confident we'll address that. I think we got to get our right tackle taken care of, or a tight end. It's hard to do it all. But the following year, whatever we miss, if we bring back Morgan for one more year and then next year have to find our future tackle, but we get a tight end, and we get the defensive tackle, you see what I'm doing? I'm checking boxes. The next year might have to be the linebacker, check, and the future tackle, check. But that's okay. That's okay. If you split our needs in half, you could do it in 2 off seasons. Especially now that we've freed up all this money by cutting Rodgers. That's the good part of it. That's why I'm not completely one-sided, because there is a good side to it. There is. There's a shitty side part of it, and there's a good part of it, in my opinion. We had a real shot at the playoffs this year with Rodgers and Adams. If Glenn, these guys, I mean, maybe we had a shot at the playoffs, Billy. I don't know how much of it. We were 5-12, and our roster was going to be worse. The coaching was going to be better, but the roster was going to be worse. Now, look, I could use all kinds of optimism and say, yeah, but we lost 8 one-score games. And with better coaching, we could have had a much better record. And that it's not, the 5-12 is not as bad as it appeared, but it also is a real 5-12. And we were also assuming a lot by saying the coaching will be better. I hope it is. I'm pumped up for him, but how many times have we hired a rookie coach all pumped up and then they suck? So, I mean, do we have a real chance? Every team has a chance, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend... that we had, like, come on. You're a Jeff fan, Billy. Like, come on. We had a good chance at the playoffs, really? Have you been around the last 15 years? Come on. Come on. We didn't have a good chance. This roster is way worse than it was last year. With or without Rodgers. This roster was much worse. Sherwood's most definitely gone. DJ Reed is most definitely gone. The safety room is a mess. The tight ends are done. Like we're going into this year much worse than last year. We're going in with a better coach. So I can't say that we were going to be a playoff team this year. We had a chance. I was hopeful. I'm less hopeful. I agree with that. I'm less hopeful. But you also got to balance in the future. Going into 26, right now, until we know otherwise, until Aaron Rodgers says, or somebody says he was willing to renegotiate, right now the reality is, on paper, without knowing nothing, he was going to cost us $63 million in 2026. You cannot dispel that. You cannot say that's a small thing. $63 million. And it would have done nothing for us. He would have been not here. Right? And then would we have won a Super Bowl this year with Aaron Rodgers? To completely erase the future? To put us in a bad position? Right now I'm talking about why I think 26 could be a good position. We could be in good shape in 26. It would not be the case. We'd have $63 million in dead cap and still have everybody to sign. All of our young guys. The guys we want to keep. And we'd have $63 million dead money. That's not a good position to be in. Plus, if you draft a quarterback in the first round, that's $10 million more a year. So now you're paying $73 million for the quarterback position. The $63 million that's dead with A-Rod, and the $10-11 million with the quarterback you drafted. If you can't get a free agent, what are you going to pay for a good free agent? What are you going to pay for a quarterback? $35-40 million? So now you give $100 million into the quarterback position? How are you going to fill your other roster spots? I mean, I'm only trying to make the point. I know we're not as good without Rodgers. I'm disappointed about it. But if he wasn't willing to renegotiate his contract for the future, what choice did we have? This was going to screw our future like to no end. So I'm saying the positive to this, when you say, well, how could there be a positive? You're saying you play for the playoffs every year. No. Yes, I want to be in the playoffs, and they're going to play for the playoffs without Rodgers. You don't shit on the future. That's why we haven't won a Super Bowl in 50 years, because of that mentality. Remember when we signed Levy and Bell? Play for the playoffs. That's why we haven't gone to the playoffs. That's the loser mentality. It's why we lose. We went out and did everything you wanted, right? Devontae Adams, trade, get all these guys, bring them all in. We have to have everybody. Bring in Cook. Did it work? It doesn't work. The Ravens don't do it that way. Pittsburgh doesn't do it that way. New England didn't do it that way. None of the winning teams do it that way, yet you keep saying it. Play for the playoffs every year. That's not how those teams did it, though. They did it by balancing the thought of the future. They let good players walk away because they didn't want to sign bad contracts that would screw the future. We watched them do it. They let players go and invested in new players. That's how you do it. I'm not saying you don't play for the playoffs. Of course we're going to play for the playoffs. But you don't say, screw 26, let's take $63 million and burn it for 26. And you tell me that's a smart way to run a franchise. And what, worry about it next year? Then next year you're crying about the $63 million. You're crying about all the players we're not signing. Use some common sense. I'm begging you. I mean, think for a second. You got to balance the future too. It's not about one thing. You can't just play every offseason for the next season. That is why I've never seen the Jets win a Super Bowl. You just summed it up. That is the exact reason. Because we don't build a plan. You need a plan. You have to think about the next year also. You have to think about your salary cap, your players, who are going to be free agents, and how you're going to build. You don't hire a new coach or a new GM and say, playoffs. I mean, we're not going to win the Super Bowl. What does the playoffs get you? Okay, yay, we broke the curse. We're happy. We lose in the wild card game, and we're devastated, and we're pissed, and we're hurt. And then we walk into next year with $63 million in dead cap and no future. How does that work? How is that a good thing? Tell me how that's good. How is that something you want? Oh, we got to win a playoff game. We got to make the playoffs, though, but now we have no hope. And now we have to wait another year to burn the $63 million. Another year. Another year of growth. And now you're crying you want Aaron Glenn fired because it's been 2 years and he hasn't done enough. Or, oh, he got worse in 26. Why did he get worse? We made the playoffs and then in 26 we didn't. Well, maybe it was just $63 million you chose to ignore. And it's more than that. Because if you would have brought Rodgers back, you would have brought Devontae back. And then that would have been another $8 or $9 million to dead cap. So it would have been $70 million in dead cap. Plus whatever other little things we had lingering, which we always do. So then we were going to start 26 with $70+ million in dead cap. All so we can play in a wild card game. Maybe. We were going to compete for the playoffs next year. Maybe. Allegedly. We won 5 games this year with Aaron Rodgers. And we're still sitting there swearing that we'd make the playoffs this year. Based on what? Based on losing? Were you there this season? Were you there as I sat there and rotted every week, suffering, having to watch this team? Or did you just shut the TV off, which is nice and convenient? Don't tell me we got to play for the playoffs every year. I'm 50+ years old, never seen this team win to the Super Bowl. I don't give a shit about the playoffs. I care about building a franchise that can compete for a Super Bowl. Because nothing else means anything. I've watched 4 AFC Championship games for this team. And every season, at the end of that season, I felt like shit, like trash. I didn't feel good. I wasn't happy that we made the AFC Championship game. It sucked because we lost. I want to be playing today on Super Bowl Sunday. That's what I want. So no, if playing for the playoffs every year means that I'm never going to be in the Super Bowl, no, thank you. I'd rather build a future. I'd rather build a future. And I'll go back to it. I'm disappointed because I was hoping that A-Rod would be willing to change his contract. And maybe he was. And then I'm pissed. Because then we could have had our cake and eat it too, Billy. We could have had both. If A-Rod came in and said, I'm willing to change my contract so you don't have to pay $63 million in 2026, then I'm pissed. Because yes, if you could preserve the future and we still have all that hope for 2026 and all that salary cap space and have Aaron Rodgers play this year, I would have been happy. I would have been happy. Of course I would have been happy because it'll make this year more enjoyable. And maybe we would make the playoffs with him. I don't know. But there's a limit to what I'm willing to give as a fan, or what I'm happy to see happen for that playoff game. And I simply am not willing to just erase and go another 2 to 3 years with no chance of a Super Bowl because I needed to make the playoffs in 25. So now I don't get to have a Super Bowl. For 2 or 3 more years, I have to put it off because we can't get the team we want put together because we have $70 million in dead cap. No, thank you. We handed you a playoff opportunity, Glenn. We didn't hand him a playoff opportunity. We didn't. That is a lie. We handed him a 5-12 team with gaping holes in its roster. Gaping holes. 2 safeties we need, 2 tight ends, a right tackle, a WR2 wide receiver, defensive tackle, a linebacker. Gaping holes. Oh, but here's a 41-year-old quarterback who absolutely sucked balls last year. And you could lie and live in any fucking fantasy you want with your 28 touchdowns. The guy in 6 opportunities to win us the game in the fourth quarter came in blank. No fourth quarter victories. Timing is everything. Yeah, I understand that we never had a good quarterback before, but that doesn't mean he's anything special. If you watch the games, forget the stats, watch the games. He couldn't win us a game in the fourth quarter. In every critical moment of the season, he threw an interception. Killed the Pittsburgh game. Minnesota lost the game with an interception at the end. Try to blame the receiver. We forgot about the times that Garrett Wilson was alone in the end zone and somehow he magically didn't see him. Why do you think Garrett wants to leave? Because he had to watch his quarterback throw the ball to his friend while he was standing alone in the end zone, alone. You forget about all of that. You just forget about it. And pretend, let's just pull out his box score from the overall season. Let's forget about the game situations, the games that we watched with our eyes. Let's just pretend. Yet, we were still better if we had him this year. I still say that. I'm not saying we're not better with Aaron Rodgers this year. But we're not. But it was a shot at the playoffs with him. A better shot at the playoffs. There's no Super Bowl. And yes, if we find out that he was willing to restructure his contract, I'm as mad as you, Billy. I'm as mad as you. If I find out that Aaron Rodgers was willing to restructure his contract and it wasn't going to hurt us in 2026, then I'm as baffled as you. But unless I find that information, I can't say that. Because right now as it stands, factually, right now as it stands, without knowing anything, without knowing what he's willing or not willing to do, he was a $63 million cap hit in 2026. That's a fact, and anybody who says he wasn't is lying. They're inventing it, and they are lying. Because Aaron Rodgers never spoke the words, I will restructure my contract if they keep me. He never said it. He implied it a little bit, but he never said it. And we don't know what happened when Aaron Rodgers was in Jets headquarters. We don't know. Which is why I can't have a strong super opinion one way or the other. Because I don't know. It's 2 different reactions from me. If Aaron Rodgers went into our headquarters, if he spoke to them on the phone, however he spoke to them, and he said, I'm willing to restructure my contract to lessen the pain of 26, and let's do everything we could win in my final year in 2025. Whatever he said. Bring back Devontae. Let's go for it. I will restructure my contract so you can do that and still move forward in 2026 and not eat 70 million in dead cap between me and Devontae. If that's what happened, then I'm baffled. Because we certainly are not going to have a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers under center this year. I agree. But if you tell me Jeremy, would you rather make a run at a wild card game and screw the pooch for the future and go into 26 with potentially 70 million in dead cap? I'm sorry, but it's a no-brainer. But I don't understand this optimism. Even though I agree we're a better team with A-Rod, even though we're a better team, you guys are lying. He never said he would take a pay cut. It's a lie. So if you want to live a lie and say lies, you could say a lie. Find me the film of Aaron Rodgers saying he would take a pay cut. He said it maybe in conditional terms that they may or may not have been able to work out and negotiate. It may have been, I'll take a pay cut if you do it my way and let me run my system, which we weren't willing to do. We don't know. But it is a lie. Because I watch Aaron Rodgers every Tuesday. That's the only time he talks and really shares information. And he never said it. He never said it. He said he'd be open to it possibly depending on the circumstance. But we don't know the circumstance. We don't know what his conditions were. So we do not know that. It is a lie. And it's just bullshit. And it's like, at least say it's your opinion. But once you say that he said it and you're saying it like it's a fact, you're just lying to back your opinion, and I won't even debate you because I'm not debating liars. I'm not debating people who are liars. Multiple sources. Tigo, show your fucking sources. Show it. You can't show me one fucking quote from him, directly from him, saying, I will renegotiate my contract and do whatever they ask me to do. Because saying I'll renegotiate my contract could mean a million things. That could mean I'll lessen the hit in 26, but spread it out for the next 5 years. Who knows what the hell he was talking about? That's just as bad. So you don't know. Stop lying. Stop telling people things that aren't true. You have a responsibility as a content provider to speak the truth. And anybody who's saying that they know that Aaron Rodgers was willing to lessen that cap hit in 26 is a liar. Because you don't know the conditions in which he meant it. We don't know what the conversation was like. If he said, I will restructure my contract, but I'm playing my system, and you are not changing the offensive scheme, and you're doing it my way, that is very different than I'll change my contract and do it your way. Those are two different things entirely. So we don't know that. We don't know what the reality is. We weren't in the room. I can only speak to what we know. And on paper, what we know right now, on paper, what we know is that Aaron Rodgers would have cost $63 million in 2026 unless he was willing to change his contract, which he implied he would, but then it didn't end up happening, right? And it could be our fault, it could be Aaron Glenn's fault, or it could be that A-Rod wanted too much. We don't know. But what I do know is to sit there and pretend that we were guaranteed, like talking like we were definitely going to make the playoffs, is an absolute fucking joke. Because we have shitloads of roster holes. This roster has terrible holes to it. Terrible holes. We have so many vacancies in this roster. And last year was shit. And I'm not saying it was A-Rod's fault. He certainly had opportunities to help us. But he wasn't the same guy he's always been, and he wasn't able to. And that's not, maybe, and I'm not going to hate him for it. He's 41 years old. There's only so much you can ask a quarterback to do. And he's coming back from an Achilles, so I'm not mad at him. But realistically, I mean, I don't even know if you guaranteed me a while. I mean, even that I'd have to think about. Let's say you guaranteed it. If you bring A-Rod back, let's say you actually do make the playoffs. You're going to make the wild cards. And then you tell me it's a $60 million cap hit. I still have to think about it because I have to think, yeah, but we're not going to win 3 road games and go to the Super Bowl because all I care about is the Super Bowl. That's all I care about. And right now we have to rebuild this team. Not a complete rebuild, but we have to retool. There's a lot that has to be fixed, and it's going to take a couple of years to do that. And I don't understand this optimism that suddenly, magically, Aaron Rodgers was going to be able to lead this team to the playoffs with no safeties, no tight ends, no right tackle. Like, how are we going to fill all those holes? I just don't understand. How are we going to do it? Like, it's just like nobody could tell me how. We have no idea what the conversation with Aaron Rodgers was like. We don't know. which is why I refuse to be angry at the Jets, and I'm certainly not thrilled. I'm not happy. Do I look happy? I would love. I'm not on the team of Knobcraft, even though I love you, buddy. I'm not on the team of wanting Aaron Rodgers to not be a Jet. No, he's the best possible quarterback that I know right now. Like, I don't know any other option. Like, Aaron Rodgers, I will say it a million times, gave us the best chance of winning next year. But I am not 100% next year. I believe in looking at the future and looking at the direction of the team. And unless Aaron Rodgers, and the second I know it, I'll change my take, and that's okay. It's not even that I'm wrong. It's just having more information. With the information I have now, this is my opinion. With the information I have now, I am disappointed that Rodgers is not coming back, but at the same time, relieved for the future and think that it's better for the future. What does that mean? That means that if he would have kept him and we would have had the $63 million hit, I would have been happy that we had him for next year, for this season, but I also would have been very concerned and kind of upset for the future. Do you understand how that works? It means that I was in the middle. I wasn't strongly one way or the other. It means that think it was a win-lose-win. It was a very hard win-win. The only win-win would have been if Aaron Rodgers came in and said, I'm restructuring. I don't know what the limits of the rules of it was. Like, I don't know how much he was allowed to do. Like, I know there's guaranteed money and there's rules that some of the money we wouldn't have been allowed to, even if he was willing to. I don't believe, like, in other words, I don't think Aaron Rodgers was allowed to come in and say $1 million for this year and then take a $2 million cap hit for next year. Like, I don't think he was allowed to do that. I think some of the guaranteed money or the bonus money had to be recognized, I think. So if you tell me that if the option was to lower to a $40 million hit, I'm not that thrilled. Because I don't believe, and I think a lot of this comes to it, do I believe that Aaron Rodgers on this roster, do I believe we would be better? Yes. Do I believe we'd have a better chance of winning? Yes. Do I believe no matter what, that gives us a really good chance to make the playoffs? No, that's nonsense. We were 5-12. I watched that team. We were not a good team. We were not a good team. And I'm not saying it's impossible. A different coach could change everything. But the fact that we were going to have all these roster holes, and believe me, you're not filling it up in one offseason. You're not filling up all those holes. And plus, even if you filled up all those holes, I mean, you're filling it up with someone, right? There's no team chemistry. Teams got to play together. You're just going to plug in all these spots? They're going to have to learn the system. I mean, I'm not saying it would have been impossible. I would have been number one rooting. If Aaron Rodgers was coming back, I'd be rooting for the playoffs and hoping we could make the playoffs. And like everybody else, figuring out how we could defend it and how we could believe that it's true. I would. But part of me also knows the truth. We haven't been in the playoffs in 15 years, and there's a reason for that. And this roster, even with Aaron Rodgers, does not inspire me anymore to believe that this would be different than the past 15 years. Not after what I sat through last season. Last season was disgusting. And we'd be worse. The coaching would be better. But the roster would be worse. So I don't know how I could sit there and be so confident we'd be a playoff team. So yes, we would be better. And yes, I wanted it to work out. But obviously it didn't. Now again, this is how my opinion will change. If it comes out to the media, if Aaron Rodgers comes out, I believe Aaron Rodgers is a truth teller. I do. If Aaron Rodgers was to come out on the McCaffrey show and said, hey man, I went in there and I offered them, and I don't know what the best is. I don't know what the best it could have been. He could have given a maximum of $37 million back. Lowest number dead cap of 2000 is he gave everything back was 23. Okay, thank you, Tigo. So if Aaron Rodgers comes out and says, I was willing to make it that the cap hit was $23 million in 2026, I'm fucking furious. Then I'm furious. They fucked us. As a fan base, they fucked us. If Aaron Rodgers comes out and says, I was willing to change my contract, so the Jets would have only had a $23 million cap hit in 2026, If he came out and said that, and he would have said, I would have been happy to play whatever system this new offensive coordinator wanted to play. If he says all of that, like if he was to say that, I'm furious. I'm as angry as Jake Asman. Furious. But I don't have that information right now, so I can't be furious. Because I don't know what the truth is. I don't know if he was willing to do that. So I just don't know. I don't know what you're talking about, bottom of the roster. I don't know. The reality is we have a ton of holes. That's all I know. I know that we also have a good future, which is why I'm talking about 26 and wanting to have a lot of money and having this offseason and next offseason, because I know that I believe we could fill all the holes in 2 off seasons, not 1. And that's not me saying we could be a Super Bowl team in 26. I think we could be a playoff team in 26. And then in 27, 28, 29, I don't know what the future holds. But I think the chance is there that we could build a very good team. But it's like the amount of new players that we have to come in here to play, it's going to look very different. I mean, we also have to build the roster a little differently. Like, I don't know that JJ is going to be good. Like, he might be a decent edge setter. I don't know that he's going to be year 2 JJ. Because he's coming off a very serious injury that lots of players never really the same. And it's not like the guy's ever had 10-plus sacks before. But don't get me wrong. I go deeper than that. I don't care only about sacks. I believe JJ might come back and be a good edge setter. And I think McDonald could get, 10-plus sacks again. I just think you need to replace Clemens. Like, you need to have an edge there that can seal the edge. Otherwise, we're going to still be seeing the quarterbacks taking off for 30-yard runs and all the shit that we had to endure. So there's a need there, in my opinion. And there's a need at defensive tackle, in my opinion. And we have no safeties, in my opinion. I don't know who you think our safeties are. I mean, maybe Jalen Millen is a safety 3, backup box safety. I mean, I don't like Tony Adams at all. I don't think there's anybody else. We need a cornerback to replace Reed. I hope it's Eccles or Stiggers. Eccles is not signed. Stiggers would be a little bit of a concern, right? So there's that. So 2 safeties, questions at cornerback, questions at linebacker, questions at defensive tackle at edge. A lot of problems just right there on the defense. And then we move over to the offense. And I'm not saying it's not fixable in 2 years. 2 off seasons, drafting, lots. That's why I want the money in 26, though, because I want to keep our core guys that we want, and I want to be able to help fill the last of those positions. We need a right tackle for next year. Right now, we don't have a right tackle. Who do we have? Warren? Mitchell? You going to get a wild card spot with them starting? Hasn't been looking too good to me. Who's your WR2? Malachi Corley? Okay, you bring back Devontae. That's more money and less money you have to fill the other spots. Okay, but fair enough. Let's say you bring back Devontae and A-Rod came with Devontae as a package. Fine. That hurts 26 a little bit more, but fine. Okay, now you have your 2 wide receivers. You still need one for the future. You're still going to need one in 26. Don't forget that. You're going to need it. But, okay, but who's our tight ends? Jeremy Ruckert? Conklin is, I think it's one of those void contract things. He's gone, right? If he wants to. We have to pay him if we want to keep him. So, Yeboah? He's our tight end 1 right now, right? Isn't he a free? He even might be a free agent. I'm not sure. So, like, who are filling these spots? I mean, we're saying, why can't we sign guys? Well, okay. How much money do we have? We don't have that much money. I mean, we can sign some guys. I'm not saying we can't fill some of the spots this year. We can, but you're not filling them with stars or great players, right? I mean, I wanted Jalen Reed, I think it's Jalen or Jaden Reed from Kansas City, the safety. That's my big signing. That's the guy I want. But the way I do the math of, unless A-Rod's really playing for free, how cheap can A-Rod make himself? I mean, he's pretty cheap anyway, right? This year he wouldn't have cost a lot, but Devontae's going to cost something. I don't know. I got to look at it. It just doesn't look that good. Right now we have like 23 million or something. So I don't know. I don't know if we bring back Devontae and A-Rod. I don't know how that 23 million looks any better. Like, how does that $23 million cap space get better? Because remember, you need some of that for your draft class. So you need some, so maybe you have room for one guy, right? I don't know. I need somebody to explain to me how. But I honestly, I don't think that if you really want to build a real team, even if you could fill, obviously you're going to fill these spots with someone. But where's the depth? Because you also have to have depth, right? Now, some of it I think is built in. If we sign a corner, like a cornerback, if we sign Eccles, then Stiggers is our depth. We're done at cornerback, right? Safety, we need two safeties. Maybe Jalen Mills is your depth. Okay. He's still cheap, right? I mean, I'm trying in my head to do this. You're stuck with CJ Mosley another year. You got Quincy Williams. Sherwood's probably gone. You got to bring in a tight end. I don't know. Do you want to go with Barnes or Serrata? Are those the guys, or do you want to sign someone? Maybe we're going to try to go a year. Some positions you just have to go with question marks or average players. I get it. So maybe linebacker you ignore. Defensive tackle, I don't know. Is LT3 ready to be a starting defensive tackle next to Quinnen? You know, and I understand you got the draft, so we're going to draft. I understand that some of these spots are going to be filled. But I also feel like we have to draft a wide receiver at some point, because you're going to wait till next year to draft a wide receiver when Devontae's gone. That's the year you want to take a quarterback, maybe. So who's your wide receiver? Like, there are problems. We have holes. We have a lot to do. That's my biggest concern. Anyway, am I missing the Super Bowl? I think I'm missing the Super Bowl. I didn't mean to go on this long. Anyway, I got all excited and crazy, but the truth is I really don't have a strong opinion about this overall, because I don't have the information I need to feel strongly. So I will sum this up by saying it one more time. If it comes out that Aaron Rodgers was willing to be on this team, as Tigo said, at a $23 million or whatever it was dollar cap hit in 2026, if that is true, and he was going to be if he said, I just want to play, I'll play and I'll learn the system and I'll change my contract. If he was willing to do that and we said, no, we don't want you, then we're fucking idiots. And the fan base should be outraged. If he wasn't willing to change his contract or say that he'd be willing to play whatever system the new coaching staff wanted to put in, if it was a disagreement like that, then I'm not as outraged. And it's that simple. It's just based on what the reality was, what the situation that we don't know. And I refuse to listen to someone tell me what it was, because if nobody here knows what it really was, I have a feeling we might know. I think Rodgers might talk about it. We'll have to see on Tuesday. Or, he might talk about it and we'll find out. But I need to find out before I can have a strong opinion, because I simply am just not that angry if he was inflexible. So, yeah, I think it's a 2-year rebuild, though. My wife's asking me in my streaming. So I'm going to go. Again, my whole point of this video, it starts off so nicely. I'm not screaming. I just get mad when people are saying things that are just not true. Like, I don't mean to call people liars and be nasty about it, but I mean, it's like, but don't tell me that he was like, don't tell me it was a done deal, like that that he was willing to renegotiate his contract. We don't know the conditions of that renegotiation. And there's a chance that you're right. There's a solid chance that he was willing to do it. He was willing to change his contract. He was willing to, and we still said no. And then I'm pissed. I'm with you. I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm right there with you. But if he wasn't willing to change his contract, then I'm not so mad. I'm disappointed. No matter what, I want everyone to know I am disappointed that Aaron Rodgers is not our quarterback next season, because I don't think we have another viable option. And right now it's going to feel, it might be very, very ugly. So no matter what, I'm disappointed. I think the question is, am I angry? Is Big Bad Chaos angry? And that's going to be determined on, we might never know, but if we get the information and we find out, it's what we find out. If he wasn't being flexible, I'm not angry. If Rodgers was willing to be flexible and concedes to the salary and everything, then I'm outraged, because I don't understand the purpose of letting him go and not doing everything you can to win. I agree that you should do everything you can to win this now, as long as it doesn't harm the future. Like, there's got to, like, as long as there's some balance. If A-Rod was willing to work with us, there's no harm on the future. There's no justification for parting ways with him. And that's how I feel. Later, everybody.